Hey, it's NPR's Book of the Day. I'm Andrew Limbong. I love hearing artists talk about being inspired by a medium other than their own. Musicians inspired by books, filmmakers inspired by architecture, that sort of thing. On the pod today, Karen Russell, the writer of the hit 2011 novel Swamplandia, talks about being inspired by photography. Her new novel, The Antidote, takes place during the Dust Bowl crisis in America. And she talks to NPR's Scott Simon about how the great photographer Gordon Parks influenced not just one particular character, but the entire worldview of the novel. That's coming up.
This message comes from BetterHelp. The holidays are a time of traditions, like making your grandmother's pudding recipe or watching that movie you've seen 1,000 times. Incorporating therapy into your life can help you take time for yourself during what can be a joyful but sometimes tough time of year. And by caring for yourself, you can show up more for the important moments. This December, start a new tradition by taking care of you. Visit betterhelp.com/NPR for 10% off.
Karen Russell's sprawling new novel begins on a day called Black Sunday. Set during the Dust Bowl storms in the 1930s, the story is told by Antonina Rossi.
On Black Sunday, before anybody knew to call it Black Sunday, I woke up in the jailhouse to a sound like a freight train tunneling through me, an ear-splitting howl that seemed to shake the stone walls. My body trembled like a husk on the cot. My fingers clawed into the mattress. For those early moments in the dark, I was nothing but the fear of floating off. What had happened to me while I slept? It felt as if a knife had scraped the marrow from my bones. Something vital inside me had liquefied and drained away, and in its place was this new weightlessness.
Karen Russell's new novel is called The Antidote, and the celebrated novelist and MacArthur Fellow joins us now from Portland, Oregon. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
What's happening on this Sunday?
This Sunday begins ordinarily, blue skies. Around 3 p.m., it looks like it's, midnight. There are these apocalyptic clouds of dust that really swallow the sun and sweep, hundreds of tons of exposed fertile topsoil across the southern plains. They reach as far as D.C. They famously dump on Congress. This was, a stretch of time where these droughts and, poor agricultural practices resulted in the dirt raining down, from the heavens.
Tell us about Antonina, because she has a gift, if that's quite the way to phrase it, doesn't she?
She does. Antonina was sort of the beginning of this novel for me. I got an image when I was finishing my first novel, quite a long time ago now, of a woman holding an ear horn. They look sort of like gramophone horns, these antique hearing aids, while a man was whispering a secret to her and sort of leaving his consciousness and entering her body. So she has a gift for sort of swallowing the past and holding it in storage for people. Her baby was taken from her at a home for unwed mothers. And this loss, and in this novel, it sort of dynamites a space inside her that she is renting out as storage for the memories that people can't stand to remember or bear to forget.
She puts them in a vault of her subconscious, doesn't she?
Yes, exactly. They're sort of beyond the waterline of her waking consciousness. She herself doesn't even know, what these people are whispering to her. And they can come and make withdrawals too. They read their deposits, slip backwards, and it leaves her and re-enters them. But she says, just like a vault, she doesn't know what she contains. On the Black Sunday referenced, she sort of wakes up in that jailhouse to that terrible weightlessness. Everything she's stored for this town for 15 years has been whisked out of her body.
There's a photographer who's dispatched to capture the crisis. Her camera has what I'll call a special sight.
There's a photographer. She's not, she's fictional. Her name is Cleo Alfrey, and she's sent really to document rural poverty. And with this camera that has special sight, she starts to take pictures that feel inexplicable of things that seem to be happening on a piece of ground, maybe yesterday, maybe 500 years in the past, maybe in some hypothetical future.
Her photographs disclose the fact that people were there before people we call immigrants ever got there.
Yes. So some of the photographs are showing that long before Europeans come to this region, there are other communities the dozens of Native nations that have been successfully living on and with this prairie ecosystem for millennia. And so some of what she's seeing is sort of a past world of flourishing. And then she's also sort of able to conjure both hell worlds, but also, blue skies, places where buffalo are kind of migrating out of the past and into the future. And that felt important to me. One of the inspirations for Cleo's character, I learned a lot from Gordon Parks and his books.
Gordon Parks, the great photographer, yes.
He said two things that really struck me. And one was, I saw that the camera could be a weapon against poverty, against racism, against all sorts of social wrongs. I knew at that point I had to have a camera. And I found myself with this particular camera with its unique long range. We have these things installed in us in birth, and they're our imaginations, and we can do this incredible thing, conjuring these future worlds that maybe they don't exist today, but they could, and making those real. And right now, I think it's really easy for a lot of us to extrapolate from what's happening today to a really bleak vision of tomorrow. And so I think part of what I tried to do in this book is use my imagination to draw other kinds of worlds into focus.
Well, you have a discussion between a couple of locals at one point, and somebody says it's a shame, but it's over and done with.
Right. And I mean, if there's anything that this novel taught me, it's that the past is certainly not safely in the past, right? That it really cohabits with the present and continues to shape it. And I really wanted, as I mentioned, to try to envision a future that was not apocalyptic, right? A future world that felt more just and more peaceful, with shared abundance for all. And to do that, I think we can't do that unless we return to our nation's history and try to reckon with it.
In life, isn't a certain amount of strategic forgetting the antidote, if you please, to just going on?
Yes. I mean, it's humbling to write a book about the gaps in people's memories while I'm very aware of many in my own, Scott. I don't think we can hold the entire secret cargo we each carry. It can't always be present to us, right? And certainly this book isn't a full 360, right? It's not so much about like filling in all the holes as sort of illuminating what possibilities and responsibilities we might be missing.
Karen Russell, her new novel, The Antidote. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Scott. It was a pleasure.
This message comes from Jerry. Many people overpay for car insurance because switching feels like too much hassle. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry compares rates side by side from over 50 top insurers and helps you switch with ease. Jerry even tracks market rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. No spam calls or hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Switch with confidence. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/NPR today.
This message comes from Schwab. Everyone has moments when they could have done better, like cutting their own hair or forgetting sunscreen, so now you look like a tomato. Same goes for where you invest. Level up and invest smarter with Schwab. Get market insights, education, and human help when you need it. Learn more at schwab.com.
This message comes from the Sierra Club, fighting to protect America's national parks and forests. These public lands are the nation's legacy, and their future is worth fighting for. Donate at sierraclub.org/NPR, and your gift will be matched.